What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to day 48 of OnShape. Today what we're making is a gear system, a one-to-one gear system. We are starting off with kind of a series of videos getting into machinery, and we're going to do just one simple video. We're going to make some simple gears, rather I would say rough-looking gears, that when one spins, the other one spins, and it's a 1-to-1 gear ratio, so we don't have to worry about anything in particular. We're just going to make one gear, one axle, and then just use that part twice. So I've got two 20-toothed gears here, so we're going to go ahead and just do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to hit the little plus sign and create part studio. And what I'm going to say is that there is lots of different types of geometries when you're using gear teeth. This one is very simple, but is not necessarily the most structurally sound. So to save time on making the video, I'm not going to worry too much about the profile of the tooth, but more of how do we get a gear made, and then also on top of that as how do we get it in the assemblies. So you can spend your time making the profile better if you really like to. So I'm going to go ahead and click on a sketch. Doesn't really matter which profile I go to. And then we're going to click on polygon. I'm going to use circumcised crop polygon, and like I said, I'm not too worried about my dimensions here or the profile, so I'm just going to make kind of eyeball size, and let's make this a 20-sided toothed or 20-sided polygon. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just draw some lines here and make a triangle. Now, there's a couple things where I've seen some things go wrong. Is if you're not paying attention as you're drawing the line here, and I actually draw it and connect it to this outside construction line for the circle, you're going to run into some problems. And so when you are making your first tooth, make sure that the profile is complete. And so like there, it's grayed out, everything looks good. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to create my tooth profile where the tooth is kind of an equilateral triangle. That way it'll fit nice and neat with the same gear. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on pattern and go to circular pattern. We're going to take this pattern. We're going to click on this geometry and we're going to repeat it 20 times. Now, I have a little bit of a problem here, so we can see my other teeth aren't showing up correctly. I know it's going to work. Just hit the left click, and it'll throw in the rest of that geometry in there. If your other lines here aren't, let me go ahead and just make my planes inactive, is if your other lines aren't shaded in, that means your profile is not complete, and you're going to run into some problems. So make sure that all of these areas are shaded. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw in an inside circle for the inside of my axle. Like I said, not worried about dimensions. You can worry about dimensions based on the gear you want to make. But all I know is I'm going to go ahead and just extrude that whole sketch. And it does a fantastic job of extruding it for me on how I want it. So we're going to hit the check mark. I'm actually going to use that first sketch again. So make that first sketch active. We're going to extrude just that inside circle. And instead of an add, we're going to make a new. And so now what we have is we have two parts here. We have my inside axle, and we have my gear. So I'm going to rename this part. This is going to be axle. And then I've got my, I labeled those parts wrong. Let's redo that. This is going to be gear, and this is going to be axle. Okay. Just for the sake of, so we can see these gears working appropriately, I'm also going to go ahead and just add some text here and just say 20. That way I know when my gear is moving as expected, I know that one gear is going to go clockwise and the other one's counterclockwise. So very quickly I just did some embossing right there, just took a 20 out, and we're done. Okay, so our gears are officially made along with our axles, and we actually need those axles, and we'll see why in a minute. The one thing I do need to make note of is the distance between the center of my gear and this outside spoke. which is 2.1. So my gear has a radius of 2.1, maximum radius. That inside is 1.67. So I'm going to keep those two values in mind when I'm making my gear setup. So at plus, we're going to go create assembly. And we're going to go ahead and just pull in those two new gears, or two copies of that gear we just made. So there's one, and there's two. Hit the green check mark, and we're done. Okay. We can go ahead and just move these gears out of the way because we want to fix these axles first. Just like almost anything we do, one part of our system is not going to be moving. And for this one, it's going to be one of our axles. So I'm going to click on this axle, find it in the ribbon, and we're going to go ahead and just fix it. That way it just doesn't move. There we go. We got our first piece done. Okay, next thing, let's get this other axle a correct distance away, and we go ahead and lock it in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fasten this axle to this axle. But not only are we just going to fasten it, we are also going to have an offset. And this offset is going to be the distance between those gears. That was that 2.1 number plus that 1.67 number. Those are kind of rough numbers, so let's see if the gear system works overall. If not, we can go in and make some tweaks. So we know that the gear system is going to be about approximately this distance apart. Okay. Now all we need to do is throw in some revolutes. So if we run straight to the gear relation, it's going to ask what mates are actually going to be gears. And we have no mates to choose from other than this fasten. So we're not quite done yet. Let's go ahead and throw some revolutes. Let's say scroll in here, find the center of this circle the best we can. The center of this is going to revolute around the center of that. Click play, and it looks good. We got one more revolute. That's going to be the center of this is going to revolute around the center of that. Now, if you notice, is that my gears don't work exactly the way I want them to right now. Is that they'll go through each other, but do they spin as they would expect? And that answer is yes. Okay, next thing we need to do is we need to figure out our distancing here. And so if we notice, since I added those two values, we are really close to a perfect separation distance here. We do have a little bit of an overlap. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go to my fasten here, and I'm going to edit it. So instead of 3.77 like what it was, let's just do 3.85. Let's give it just a hair bit more distance. That is actually too much. Let's edit that again. Let's just do 3.8. Okay, there we go. Things are going as expected. Okay, let's spin that around. There we go. Okay, all we need to do now is fix our gear relation. So our gear relation is what two mates are going to be in relations with each other. That is a gear. And so all we're going to do is click on these two revolutes. And since it is a 1-to-1 gear ratio, we don't have to change the gear ratio at all. We're just going to keep it as 1. And we hit the green check mark. Now, if I move these, let's see if I can move these. My computer's running a little bit slow. There we go. We're lagging hard, folks. What we find out is I have a little bit of an overlap. That's not quite right. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take one of my revolutes and I'm going to twist that gear just a few degrees. So let's right click and let's then do edit on this mate connector. we're going to move it just a few degrees. Let's try 5. Let's try 8. Let's try 3. 2. You know what? Let's try 15. Nope, not 250. Hey, you know what? That actually worked. Blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. Okay, so go ahead and click green check mark. And what we see is, oh, nope, not quite. We're super close on that, aren't we? Right click edit. Let's just do 15. That is looking like a winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. And so what we see overall is that my gear relationship works really, really well. It's a one-to-one relationship. So we see is that we got 20 teeth on the left, 20 teeth on the right. So as one does one full revolution, we see that the same thing does on the other side, just in the opposite direction. Okay. Well, there you go, guys. We've officially made a one-to-one gear system. We've put them in correctly, and we did some small adjustments. So let's talk about those small adjustments again real quick. Just make sure we're in a good spot. If your axles are too close together, you need to adjust that fasten to where they're spaced off just enough apart to eyeball that system. And the quickest way to do that is to find how big your gear is. So if you're making a gear to scale or to use, you should know what that radius dimension is. The next thing is that we could fix our revolute because our gears, even though they were rotating correctly, they were overlapped. And so we clicked on the drop down menu and fixed our mate connector just a few degrees to make it work. And then the last thing we did was is sometimes when you do your gear ratio, you can have the wrong direction. And so I'm going to go ahead and click this reverse direction here, and both gears are rotating clockwise. And that's just not how gears work. You can see that the teeth are just completely overlapping at one point. So in the instance of one gear is flipped from the other, you might have to reverse the direction in order to get things to work appropriately. Okay? Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. I will see you in the next video. If this video has been helpful, absolutely, please let me know. If I did anything wrong, could have done it better, just feel free to reach out however you need. These videos are tons of fun, and I'm looking forward to the next one and kind of the next series of videos we got looking at gears and assemblies. Okay guys, take care, and I'll see you on the next video.